All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and participating in our event today and tomorrow. Our current session is sponsored by Concourse Syllabus. Ms. Faith Jelley will be presenting on syllabus management, what's in it for you and them. We are recording, and this will be posted to YouTube hopefully later in the week, if not this week, but early next week. So thank you for joining, and Faith, I will turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Emily. Hey, everyone. As Emily said, my name is Faith Jelley, and I'm here to talk to you about Concourse, our syllabus management solution. And today we're really going to focus on what's in it for you and them. So again, but before we get too far into the presentation, just a little about me. I have a slide for this, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in and do it now. So we'll just skip that slide in a second. So my name's Faith Jelley. I have been with Concourse, honestly, for about 6 months now. So before this, I was the Director for Distance Education and Center for Teaching and Learning at Rowan Cabarrus Community College, where I was employed for about 12 years before I made this leap over here. So I have been in your shoes. I'm super familiar with the community college system and how everything kind of works. So you've got that. Oh, I was also a board member. That's right. I was an NC3ADL board member. Thanks for posting that. I almost forgot. So it's been definitely a journey. So I'm so glad to be with you here today to talk about Concourse, because we had been using it at Rowan Cabarrus for over a decade. And I'm just really glad to be able to have this opportunity. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about what's in it for students, what's in it for faculty, academic supervisors, the institution, because we need to have a big picture of really who can benefit from having a syllabus management system and what that can mean for those particular players. All right, so what is Concourse Syllabus? Well, we are the pioneers of syllabus management. When Rowan Cabarrus started looking for the options for syllabus management because of some of the issues we had run into, we came across Concourse, and we ended up becoming one of the first handful of Concourse clients. And it was such a great experience that we just jumped right in and have stayed with them the whole time. So it's a data-driven, template-based management system, which means that you can organize and dole out permissions and do all kinds of cool things to help ensure that you're creating a consistent and accessible place for your students to get access to the syllabus. All right, I kind of covered all this already, but well, most of this about me. But the vast majority of our employees are from higher education. Even our sales folks started out in higher education. Our instructional designer was at a higher education institution. And so we all kind of come from that background. So we understand kind of the needs internally for what the organizations typically look like and how we can help you get your information out there in the best way possible. And several of our employees are still adjunct faculty at higher education institutions. So we're not only higher education adjacent, we actually still participate. I, for one, still teach as an adjunct instructor for Rowan Cabarrus Community College as well. All right, and I will be trying to monitor the chat as well. So just feel free to pop anything in there if you have questions as we go along. All right, before we get too far into the presentation, I do have two quick polls, and we're not going to do anything super fancy with it. Just want to know in the chat, who's here? Just in the chat, do me a favor and type your primary role at your institution, just so I get a feel for who's here. That way, if I need to focus more on a specific area, I can do that as well. Okay, so far we got some faculty, lots of faculty. Department head, faculty. Okay, perfect. DE, math instructor. All right, that's fantastic. Director, faculty. Wonderful. Okay, and while some of those are still coming in, part two, syllabus struggles. In the chat, just go ahead and you can do it in just 1 or 2 words. I don't need a paragraph, and this is not your time to shine and write a huge essay. We don't need that. But just in the chat, let me know what your biggest syllabus struggle is, and we'll see if that's something we can also address. I think it's going to take a few seconds for the responses to roll in. Give you just a few more. Getting students to read it. Yes, yes. Absolutely. I think that's going to be the #1 struggle for everyone, is getting students to read the syllabus. All right, well, I'm going to let some of those roll in. So if you think of others, please just type them in the chat, and we're going to go ahead and talk about what's in it for getting students to understand the value. That's super important. So let's talk about what's in it for students. The templates that we use make the presentation and content consistent. So the students don't have to worry about, did the faculty member update the link to the Title IX policies? It's there, it's active, if that's included in your institutional template, which most folks do. So any of that higher level institutional information is consistent and present, and it's all presented in the same way across the college. So students aren't trying to figure out where things lie. Our syllabi embeds directly with all the LMSs, everything from Blackboard to Canvas to Sakai to Populi, Moodle, we cover it all. So when a student is taking a class, they can actually go into their class in their LMS and just click on syllabus, and it loads right there. And it can load inside a frame, so it looks like it's just part of your normal processes, part of your normal college information. I was talking to somebody the other day about Concourse, and I told them where I'd gone and what I was doing, and they said, really? Because they were a student at Rowan Concourse, and they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was a separate thing. I thought it was just built in, like, to the processes you guys do. I didn't know it was this whole separate product. And so I think that's a huge benefit, because the students don't feel like they're going to some other product, because they don't have to log in separately. They don't have to do anything else. It's just embedded right there. And we are WCAG 2.1 AA compliant. So that's always a benefit. It's a benefit for the students, for the faculty as well, working on the syllabi. And it just helps keep that consistent across the way. And of course, because it's going to be embedded and up there and available, it's always available for the students. So, if we go back to some of those presentations we've seen where they ask questions like, if another student can do it at 2 a.m., can a student with a disability do it at 2 a.m.? So we can always answer yes to this question, because it will always be available. All right, so here is a sneak peek. This is my actual syllabus. So, so I'm literally showing you my live syllabus right now. It is a screenshot of it, but that's my syllabus currently that I use at Rowan Concourse. You can see I provide all of the main information in the content. There's a lot more categories on the way down. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see a table of contents. So that will help them actually navigate and jump through the syllabus, so they don't have to scroll and scroll, especially if we have a lot of college policies or institutional policies. They don't have to scroll to get through those to get to something like a schedule of course topics. So instead, they can just hop directly to that area, which I think is a huge benefit, because a lot of our syllabi, we all know with the way of accreditation and everything else, we have a lot of things in our syllabi, and sometimes our syllabi aren't as teaching tool friendly as we would like. Instead, they become kind of policy holders, and I know that's not popular for a lot of us, because we don't feel like that's truly the whole need of the syllabus. We really want to focus on our class and the content we're covering. But at the same time, we also know that accreditors and quality places like Quality Matters require this information to be very easily available. And so the syllabus is a lot of times where it gets smashed. So having the access for the students to be able to jump around through the different layers of the syllabus to see what they really need to see when they need to see it is a great benefit to them. And again, I'm watching the chat, so any questions, feel free to pop them in there. So faculty, a lot of our folks here are faculty. Oops, I hit a button too quick. And so we want to make sure that when we have a new tool implemented, that it actually is meeting a need and not making our lives more complicated. And I say that as an adjunct faculty member. I never want to do the extra work of learning something that they're going to switch out in a couple of weeks because it just was too overbearing and too difficult to navigate. So the great thing about Concourse is it is super easy to navigate. And from a faculty perspective, you don't have to worry if you have the right contact information, the right links to your Title IX coordinator or whoever else in the college, because all of that can be included up front in the main template that then trickles down, and it will always be right on your syllabus. So I don't know who here has ever had their website kind of updated at their college and then used a link. They send a link to students and students are like, oh, that doesn't go anywhere. And you're like, oh, right, they updated the website, so I've got to change this link. I'm assuming some of you have had that because I literally had that happen 2 or 3 times in the past few years. So being able to ensure that that information is right and not something you don't have to search for yourself and update is super beneficial. Also, the ease of copying and editing. We use a tiny MCE editor. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's basically like the editor inside an LMS. So whatever you see inside Blackboard, Moodle, those little editors where you just type in your information, it's going to be the exact same thing. So you're going to have a lot of familiarity with how to enter and edit content. And if it's turned on, faculty can also see which students have accessed the syllabus. So there's actually a way for you to kind of get a gauge for, okay, these 5 people have accessed it. You can tell when they last accessed it. And then there's some other additional data that can be pulled in reports that we'll talk about later on. But being able to see which students is a great start to being able to contact them and make sure that they've seen the syllabus. Because I think a lot of us all have those little things, you know, and as part of our entry, have you read the syllabus? And students are all like, oh, yes, of course I have. Absolutely. But here we can actually go in and see, oh, you really didn't. Only 3 students have accessed the syllabus. So then I can create some emails and communications and kind of reach out to my students so let them know, hey, this is really important. Look for this information here and kind of redirect them in that way. Also, say you're mid-semester and we have a crazy hurricane, snowstorm, whatever thing happens, where we have to actually postpone classes or do something differently or change our schedule. Sometimes we update the syllabus to reflect that. And with Concourse, you can actually send an alert to all of your students saying, hey, this information's been changed, and it will email all the students and let them know about the change. Likewise, you can also send that to your supervisor. So if your academic supervisor, your chair, your dean, whoever has said, hey, can you make this change and let the students know, you can make the change, let the students know, and also let them know as well by just sending them part of that communication. Any questions? Since there are a lot of faculty here, I know that a lot of the concern kind of comes in from this end. There's occasionally faculty resistance to moving to a product like this. So in the chat, just let me know what your concerns or questions.
They didn't tell anybody they closed that entrance. I had to drive around the building.
Hello?
I believe that might have been an error by someone who's turned their microphone on.
Okay, perfect. All right, so faculty especially, let me know in the side, like what questions you have, because I know that when it comes to rolling something out, we have to make sure that we can answer the faculty side of questions as well for it to be a successful rollout. So we definitely want to include your perspective and your questions in everything we do. All right. Next up, let's talk about, oh, sorry, I was going to show you the tiny editor real quick. So when you're in Concourse and you go to edit something from a faculty perspective, literally there's going to be this little edit button. and you click on edit and you type your comments in here, add links, all of that good stuff. And you can also delete it by clicking this button. You'll get a warning. Hey, are you sure you want to delete this thing? And then you can say yep or nope, and then move on. But you can see how intuitive and easy it is to use this specific editor. Now, let's talk about academic supervisors, because sometimes that's where some of the impetus for deploying something like this comes from. It comes from wanting to ensure that there's that consistency across the board. And sometimes that consistency comes in through like your student learning outcomes. It comes in through your course descriptions and things like that. So not just that top level information where we're talking about our FERPA and our Title IX and all of that good stuff, but also from that level for the department or for the course where we're really talking about what needs to be accomplished. Did they get the description that is being sent out in the catalog to all students? We have had some instances, not necessarily personally, but with some clients I've been working with recently, where faculty are like, well, I don't really teach it that way, so I've made up my own description, and I'm going to teach it this way, which, is great if it's a standalone course. But when you're talking about courses that need to be scaffolded or courses that connect to other courses in any other way, then it's going to be an issue, because then you're not going to be teaching to the catalog, and that can be a problem for the students taking the classes. So we definitely want to do that. So the templates, we can do as many template layers as you like. Obviously, the more you do, the more that gets complicated, but we consistently see 3 levels of templates. That's going to be your institutional level, where you have all those institutional basic policies that you want to make sure that everybody in the college knows. Then you come down to department level. Not all departments use department level templates. However, we find them especially useful in areas like nursing, BLET, where they have very specific departmental needs that need to be pushed down to the students because they need to understand certain levels of expectations. And then the course template. Again, these may vary by institution, but just to kind of give you an overview. So the course template could be one that contains the course description, the student learning outcomes, things of that nature. And then when the faculty gets it, they can edit whatever things you want to allow them to edit. So if you want them to have some editing control over the description, you can pre-populate the description and then allow them access to edit it. If you're like, nope, this is our description, please don't edit this, then we can lock that down so faculty can't edit it. So it's completely role-based permissions, so that you can kind of keep under control those elements that you really don't want changed or modified in any way. There is also audit and review functionality, so that you can go through the process of reviewing syllabi and having faculty submit them for review if that's your preferred choice. But you can also just use it as a way to double check to make sure that the syllabi are being modified and edited as needed. There is also versioning and a change log, which I'm going to show you in just a second, which allows you to see which versions of the syllabus were used, so that you can see every time a big change was made. It'll post it all over there. And then there's a piece by piece level where you can actually see the changes that were done, when they were done, and who did them and how they were applied. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. And you have the ability to include CVs. If that's something your institution wants to do, you can absolutely include CVs. There is some places have, some states have a law. North Carolina is not one of them right now, but some states have a law that require all faculty CVs to be available with the syllabus publicly. So some institutions are definitely utilizing that option. Again, that's not required for North Carolina right now. So we'll just have to keep an eye on those laws and see what happens, since so many other states are taking up laws of that nature. All right, as I was talking about the roles and privileges. So when you set up a syllabus or set up Concourse, you get to determine initially what rules are applied to all people in certain roles. So for example, I've got a screenshot here of the instructors. And what will happen is you can come in here and you can say, what all you want them to see, whether they can have no access at all, which is not typical, because why would you have stuff in a syllabus that your faculty couldn't see or edit? That seems a little odd. But and maybe it's a very special type of syllabus, and some you're using it for a different type of thing, or maybe you're using it as holding information. You're not ready to deploy things like outcomes just yet. But regardless, you can come in here and say whether faculty can view it or whether faculty can edit it. And this up here will drop down and you can select which group you want to apply that to. So we've got groups like students. So we can say that we do want the students. I mean, obviously we don't want students to edit. So students are almost always completely view all the way down. But then you've got manager roles where you can assign different functionality, as well as public and guest. I don't really cover those so much in this presentation, but just so you know, you can enable guests. That guests for Concourse means other people that are in the system, but not necessarily assigned to a course. So say you've got your English faculty and you're like, hey, John, go check out Sherry's syllabus. John can go in and take a look at Sherry's syllabus without being assigned to her syllabus. So that allows him to just go in and look and say, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. Let me do mine the same way, or copy that content. Again, I don't cover that in detail during this session, but you can definitely copy content with just a handful of clicks. All right, any questions about the roles so far? All right, next up, we talk about the change log. So when you make changes to a syllabus, it's actually all logged. And so that's a good thing. So I do know that the syllabus is one of the #1 causes of grade appeals. Say it wasn't in the syllabus, or it didn't say that, but now it says this. And so tracking what was updated and what wasn't updated can be really important for protecting faculty and students. So coming in here, we can see like this specific syllabus that I pulled up has had 43 additions, no actual edits, no reorders, and no deletes. But we can also see down here the timestamp for each thing that was modified. In addition to this overall change log, you have a detailed one. Now, I didn't pull this one. I need to find one with some different information in it. So I pulled just the header. So you get the timestamp, the item that was updated, the user that made the update, the action. So that was it edited? Was it deleted? Whatever. The method. So it's going to tell you how it was done. Also, if it was done by a feed, it's going to link you to that feed, and the origin. So it's going to tell you whether it was manually done, whether it was done through a feed. So you can really keep an eye on any changes. So if anybody says, wait, that's not what the syllabus said, you can say, no, the syllabus hasn't changed. That item has not changed since the implementation of the syllabus. So no, the syllabus has always said that thing. So I find this a great way to have that additional control over what the syllabus does and doesn't look like. All right. So before I move on to the institution piece, does anybody have any questions? You guys are so quiet today. No questions? All right. So what's in it for the institution? Well, a lot of the benefits for students, faculty, and academic administrators bleed over into the institutional piece. But we do have a couple of extra things that, while are also good for the faculty and administrative support users or administrators, we also have some things that we find really make administration happy. So accreditation support. If you needed to pull all of if you were using the SLOs and you were getting them there, and you needed to prove what you were telling the students the SLOs were for your classes, you could actually pull a report and have the syllabus listed, the title of the class, as well as the actual SLOs provided to the students in the syllabus. So being able to be super detailed with that reporting to provide accreditation support is invaluable. We find that for a lot of our institutions, the nursing programs and things like that have additional accreditation or licensure, do need to provide additional support saying where they provide this information, and being able to pull it in a report makes it so much easier to provide that. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Which North Carolina CCs use Concourse syllabus now? Rowan Cabarrus, Southwestern, Lenore, and James Front are the current Concourse clients in North Carolina. Okay, so we now have LTI 1.3 live and ready to go. So if you come over and use and want it to tie into your LMS, you are going to have the ability to use LTI 1.3, which has a little added security and additional ways to pull and manipulate data. And for those of you that aren't familiar with this, this is going to be more on the IT side of things when you're really working with that specific connection from Concourse to your LMS. Feed driven process. So that means that whatever you can pull out of Colleague, if you can make it into a report, you can pop that sucker over to Concourse and get all your information in there. So when you do that, once you get all your information settled, you can even make it automated. So then you don't have to worry about populating things like the section numbers or the instructors or any of that. It can literally just be pulled directly from Colleague and then ported over. So that is fantastic. And I believe that every college in the North Carolina Community College system that uses Concourse is actively using automated feeds, I believe. But if not, we can help you with that as well. Permissions for internal and external access. The reason I include this here is because of the other states that are doing some additional things with their syllabi and making additional requirements. So states like Texas and Florida have now implemented a rule where syllabi have to be available to anybody, not just the students, but anybody. And certain pieces of information have to be available, like the materials that are being used to teach the course. In Florida, there's now a rule that says that you have to have all of that available for gen ed courses 45 days prior to the start date, and it has to be public. So Texas has some similar things happening with them. Theirs go more along the line with the CVs and making sure that the syllabus is publicly accessible as well. So depending on what may or may not happen, being able to provide different permissions for external folks as well as your internal folks can be a huge benefit. So you, as an institution, you can determine what you want to make publicly available. Now, I will say that even without these rules and regulations, being able to provide your syllabus ahead of time for students, even if you're just providing things like the course description and the SLOs up front and maybe not providing faculty specific information, providing that somewhere on a website, linking to it, however you want to do it, is also a great way to help the students stay in touch with what they need to do. And it may get them to actually look at the syllabus a little bit earlier if they've got access to do that. There's also a sandbox set up for every single client that allows you to test any changes. So say you're working on some of these feeds. Sometimes you don't want to start with a feed right on your production site. So this gives you the opportunity to do some testing and to run the feeds through and to like look and make sure you've got all your stuff aligned the way you want it to be aligned before you actually push that out to production. So you've got this safe place to make all these changes and to do all this testing. And then once you get it ready and you roll it over to production, we can always copy production back over to Sandbox so that you always have a nice clean place to do your testing in. Archiving. Now, I don't know about you all, but this is where we actually at Rowan Cabarrus kind of decided we needed to implement some sort of solution, because the way things were happening at the college were the chairs or the faculty were given their template in like a Word document and then told to make their changes and then to send a copy of their changes to academic programs for them to store. And so we always would have copies of those. Well, as you can probably guess, that there were a lot of times when the Syllabus didn't make it all that way. And so then there were chunks of syllabi missing. So you may be wondering, why is this super important? Well, there are a lot of cases where students, when they're transferring, need a copy of the syllabus. And not just the description of the course. We've seen an increase in that, at least at Rowan Cabarrus. As I was going out, we actually had finally established a process for intaking those requests and turning them around and providing students with their old syllabi. So by having this done in Concourse, it allows you to actually go and pull, because Rowan Cabarrus has been using it since 2012. Literally any syllabus since 2012 can be retrieved within like about 4 clicks. And then we can just download and send that over to the student or the school. Every once in a while, schools will also request those. So having the ability to provide that information really quickly and not having to track down any other information or being worried that it may not exist, you'll always have that. So reporting, I've kind of alluded to with a lot of these other steps, so I'm not going to cover that too much, but in a minute, I'm going to show you a screen with a lot of the reporting options available. And then there's branding, because we know that once you have Concourse, you're going to want to make it part of what you do, not like this separate thing that's hanging out somewhere else. So it will have completely your branding and colors and whatever documentation you give us to apply that branding. So because we've been talking about things like reporting, here's a quick view of just some of the reports. Well, actually, this is the majority of the reports that are available to you all to access depending on your role and in Concourse. So you can look for missing items. You can look for items specifically. So remember when I was talking about the SLO, say for your nursing program, you need to provide the SLOs for every single nursing class you have to your accreditor. Then you can actually pull that, have it all in one giant spreadsheet and pass that on. And then it's all collected. It's all coming from one source. So you don't have to worry about getting that information from 10 faculty or going in and copying it from somewhere inside a course or pulling together a whole bunch of documents and grabbing that information separately. Instead, you're able just to pop out a little report and send that on. And we find that that suits most folks' needs. One of the things we don't talk about a lot, but that is available in Concourse is reading level. Some institutions are now taking a really hard look at not just the content that's being provided, but how the content is being provided and what language is being used to make sure that it really is accessible by all their students. And so this gives you the opportunity to take a look at the reading levels of the different syllabi. Obviously, some syllabi are going to rank a whole lot higher, like especially if you have a lot of technical jargon in a class, but you've got to, it helps you determine how technical and complicated your syllabus may read to make sure that you're presenting your syllabi as a whole in a way that speaks to your students. All right, we can also look at syllabus changes, overall usage, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So compliance. I'm not going to read these to you because you all can read. But one thing I am going to say is one of the greatest things I've heard since I'm coming over to Concourse, from being a client to being an employee, is I was working with somebody the other day and they said, you know, we really wish all of our implementations were as smooth as the implementation we had with Concourse, because your process was so easy and straightforward. And it's just, we haven't seen that with other vendors. And so we do have a very detailed and project management oriented approach to implementation. And we work through that with the institution and all the appropriate people on their side, all the stakeholders that they want us to meet with. We definitely do that. And my job at Concourse is actually an implementation specialist. So what that means is that in addition to my role, in addition to our project manager, I really help manage that piece of your implementation where we really talk about what you need to have done, what kind of information you need, who should be involved in the meetings. So we work on that together to make sure that we have all the right people at the table and that we're able to convey what we need to convey and make sure that the syllabi deploy on time. And so we've had a lot of success doing that. And so I'm really proud of the team we have and the way we work together with the institutions to make sure their implementation goes off without a hitch. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the presentation I have. I wanted to make sure I left some time for questions and answers, and see what all you have on your minds about syllabi. Now would be a great time to ask questions in the chat. Okay, somebody has to have a question. Or was it just so perfect you're ready to buy it now?
And everyone who's on the call, you do have capabilities to turn on your microphone if you prefer to speak versus typing in the chat.
Thanks, Emily. And while you all are thinking of your questions, because I promise I'm not going to drag this out too long, I do want to give a special shout out to Carrie. Carrie's in the chat. She is our marketing guru, and she helped me pull this presentation together so that I could talk with all of you. And so I just want a quick shout out to Carrie for that. Price structure. Thanks, Carrie. So there's a question about price structure in the chat. So it really has to do with FTE, and there's this initial setup fee, and there are some packages that can be explored. I'll be perfectly honest, I do not touch anything with money because it's not what I want to do. I don't want to know how much our clients are paying or any of that. So that would be definitely a question that you could explore, but I will say that I know that part of it's based on FTE and the implementation setup fee. The only question was about pricing. Okay, well, I will talk just about a couple more things. I'm not going to drag this on, I promise, but I will say that we do have a lot of clients throughout Texas and Florida, and we are working on getting some additional resources built. We have weekly webinars and we have weekly office hours that allow you to participate in a variety of learning opportunities that are completely free for you. You just drop in, watch the webinar, or if you sign up, you just get the webinar for free. So if that's something you want to do, you can check out the Concourse website, and all that information will be provided. You can just search for the different webinars, the training opportunities. We even have a test site that allows you to get in and really just poke around and test things. The testing site restarts every 24 hours and does a complete refresh. So nothing you do will stay put, but it gives you a place to do those things, to test it out, to see what it's like to actually edit a syllabi and to do all the connections and to just poke around. Because I find that the more you poke, the better you feel about a product. And so we definitely want you to have some time to do that. Thanks, Brian. Brian says he likes the product. We'll have to talk more about pricing structure. I agree. And Brian is our sales person. Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. Why did I not say that? Thanks, Carrie. So Carrie put that in the chat. Brian is our salesperson. So Carrie has just posted in the chat the information for Brian. So you can just reach out directly to him, send him a quick email, and he will get right back with you. For the sorry, I was reading the chat and Brian said it's hard to trust somebody with a name like that. Okay, so one of the comments from NC3ADL was, it looks like a great tool, especially with how accessible it appears, as well as mobile, responsive, and friendly. That's absolutely correct. One of the things when I was at the CCS conference, when was that, about a month ago? That's one of the ways I displayed it, because sometimes things weren't, the power wasn't really running as well to our booth. So what we did was I actually would bring up my actual syllabus on my phone, and it's such an easy way to view and edit and do whatever you need to do. Obviously your screen's a whole lot smaller, but it's absolutely compatible. It resizes, reconfigures everything into a more vertical format so that you don't have that side to side scrolling and all that stuff that makes sometimes apps that embed web pages kind of annoying. So you don't have that to deal with. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, on this screen, you'll see that we've got the info@intellidemia.com. So if you just want to reach out and ask for more specific questions. Also, as Carrie said, as Carrie posted Brian's information in the chat. So if you have specific pricing questions, he's your man. And if you just want to reach out to me to ask me any questions, because I have been with the community college system for so long and am now doing this, but have been a client of Concourse for so long, I am here to also answer any questions. So my email is down below, faith@intellidemia.com. Intellidemia is our overall company. Concourse is one of our products. So we appreciate your time today. We thank you so much for hanging out with us and learning more about the syllabus. If you have any questions, again, just reach out. Can't wait to talk to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Faith and Carrie, for attending today and showing us your syllabus tool. Really appreciate you joining in. And to everyone in attendance, I appreciate you joining in as well. I hope to see you in some of our later sessions today and tomorrow. Our next one is at 2 o'clock today, and it's from a platform called Active Class, which is a sort of a discussion-based platform to kind of bring a little bit more engagement and interaction to your classroom. So thank you all, and I hope to see you later. Thanks.